We'll call this special meeting of the Inland Wetlands Commission to order. Today is Thursday, November 7th, and it is 6:36 p.m. This will be our special meeting agenda. We do have a public hearing, but that does not start until 7. So I'd like to call pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
and to
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll take attendance. Marcia Putz. Here. Brian Moore.
Here,
Okay. Wendy Ann Fowler, I'll note is absent. Louise Sheedy, I'll note is absent. And I'll note that we do have a quorum. Okay. And let's go into our special meeting agenda. I think we skip. To do item 2, right? Approval of minutes, we're on here for that. So. Approval of the meeting minutes from October 3rd. The only thing I had from that was on page 2. I think it was just one thing. Under question 5 for the Q&As. The first question, I don't know if that's supposed to say was, what is their, meaning they're belonging to them, or what is the reason? So that's the only one I couldn't remember. It could be read either way. So, and if it's there being possessive, then it's spelled incorrectly. So, otherwise, I don't think I had anything else I noted. Did you, Marcia? All right, Brian, did you have anything that you noted on the minutes from last month?
nothing. I'm good.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of October 3rd of the Inland Wetlands special meeting.
So moved.
Okay. Second? Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay, very good. Moving on. We know we have public comment, but if there's any member of the public that would like to speak on something that is not on the agenda, please feel free to come up to the podium and state your name and address. Okay, good. Let's move to item 4, old business. A, commission discussion decision regarding application IW 24-05 for the Blue Water Project Distribution Center located at 0 Pondview, 0 Waterbury Road, 0 Great Hill Road, 191 Sheridan Drive, and 0 Sheridan Drive. And the applicant is BMG Waterbury LLC, which we know we have a public hearing, and we did receive some additional information in our packets regarding this. I don't think we're going to make a decision at this point until after the public hearing, so I just ask that the commissioners are able to read the material. I know it's a lot of material, and focus on the wetlands issue, as that is what we were here for. Let's see, we have a packet here.
No, we wouldn't talk about anything that right now.
No?
No, we'll just go on to the next
All
one.
right, so
That all comes out.
that all comes out later, fine. Item B, commission discussion decision regarding application IW 24-06 for the Fox Hollow Silver Ridge Active Adult Development located at Silver Ridge Lane. Applicant is attorney Kevin McSherry on behalf of Jared Honey, the contract purchaser.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Kevin McSherry, 38 Fairview Avenue, Noxon, Connecticut. On behalf of Gerard Tooney, glad to be here. Good to see people in person, despite Attorney Fitzpatrick's comments about my disability. I'm getting better every day, and someday I'll run after him and maybe catch him.
You do that.
Here.
Well, this, as you know, this project started in the year 2005 with an approval, was granted an extension in 2010 and an additional extension in 2015. These extensions have been are expired, and when we looked at the project and reviewed it, the project has been mostly built out from a standpoint of wetlands purposes. There's no activity presently proposed inside the wetlands. In the upland review area, there's about half of a biofilter that's been built. I'm not sure if everyone's had an opportunity to go out and look at it, but in my consultations with my learned engineer, Wayne Ciroli, I've been able to determine that about half of it's been built out. With what's left to do is to put some more stone in, do some additional plantings, and do some soil and erosion fencing around it as it gets built out. There's about 13 additional units that are to be built, and we have proposed providing Coltex galley systems to contain and utilize that to retain the water and get to the point where we meet the runoff requirements. Tonight, my consultations with Lori Vitella, that we have to make a decision about significant impact. And I would say that when I look down the definitions in your significant activity area of your 2.36 of your regulations, 2.361 through 2.367, we're not proposing any activity in the wetlands. So I don't think we're a significant impact. And we're hopeful that we can move forward. But to be candid, as a prospective buyer, we're looking at more and more costs cropping up from just trying to get to the point of approval. So as we look at that, we're trying to measure things out and with the hopes of finishing the project. And I know that's not one of your concerns, but you know, it's a realistic concern of my client, and I've had discussions with him on a regular basis. As you know, he's still proceeding. I know we did a property walk with some people were able to attend. The project, and when you walk it, it's there. It's not a lot of things are going to change at all. So the biofilter, kind of interesting when I read the notes back to 2005, describing it, it's creating a wetlands. That wasn't there before. It's creating a drainage area, which would be a natural drainage area for the site. It's about 300 cubic yards of material, 300 cubic yards of an area that's going to add to and create a wetlands and do a natural treatment of the waters that come off on runoff. So, you know, that being finished up and the only thing left to be finished up, I think it makes it helpful for this commission to make a decision favorable that it's not a significant impact. And I think that's the issue we need to address tonight.
Thank you.
Wayne, you have anything you want to add?
No, Attorney McSherry pretty much covered it. So the location of the existing sediment basin, which needs to be converted to the bioswale or the biofilter. So originally it was proposed to the west side of building number 11. It was actually constructed to the east side of building number 11, and the existing road drainage for the upper road actually drains to it now. I was out there last week. I wanted to locate where it was, which I did provide that to the land use office as a PDF. So it's in good condition. There's a berm around it. There's a outflow pipe, a 6-inch outflow pipe. The end of the 12-inch pipe running into it has riprap, which is in the basin. The exit pipe, the outlet pipe also has riprap at the outlet, and there's a berm around the whole thing. So in order to finish it up, turn it into a biofilter, bioswale, it needs to be expanded. So, you know, some of the berm will need to be moved. The rest of it built out, new berm around the additional area. We'll protect that with erosion control fencing. So it will be well controlled. There should not be any sediment or effect to the upland review area or the wetlands. And that's it.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Kevin. Marcia, you were out at the site, right? Yes. Do you have anything to add?
No, I guess I just wanted to clarify what Wayne was talking about with the, where the current location is. Is that, Lori, you and Jim were with me when we spotted that? Is it just needed to be corrected? It just.
Yes. So it's on, that's where it is.
It
on.
wasn't, apparently wasn't built the way it was designed. So in my opinion, already installed the pipes in, so it makes sense to keep the pond where it is constructed now and just do the work there. Yes, it's okay with you.
Right, okay, but we're still gonna, you have to update some things on the plans, and you'll be back again anyhow.
Yeah, we intend to return next month to you guys again, and we do have some updates, including relocating where that biofilter is supposed to be, but, so we'll be back next month. And we appreciate your patience with it. It's been a learning process for everybody, because as we discovered, oh, it's in a different spot.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Brian, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Marcia, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good for tonight.
I mean, you know, given the information and, you know, your site walk with it with Lori and Jim, I don't think that this is a significant activity,
No, I don't.
you know, at this point.
No, I mean, that there's just, it's a small area that they're going to be, you know, working in and, yeah, they need to get it done,
Yeah.
so.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we have an opportunity, I think, with new, you know, stormwater control guidelines to make it a better site
Better.
too, so.
Right.
I think that's the case, as we've been looking at everything, we've made some improvements, each one of the individual units with their own contact unit as we're gonna propose it. And so that's gonna collect the water and get us to that negative area where we want us to be.
Yeah, I think, just want to say, you know, before you guys, you know, finish your plans, probably my biggest concern is that it is up on a hill, on a slope, and, you know, of course, want to make sure we don't end up in a situation where the, Pigeon Brook or anything that's beyond Pigeon Brook, that we contribute to anything that would make that flood more, and erode more, so that's just my biggest.
So the
concern.
system now works well. I think, the changing to the contact units for each one of the units, before there was, a number of them were being shared. That'll just, make that concern about drainage be eliminated.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering when we were there, if any of the neighbors had ever, you know, expressed any concern with it, and I guess not, because nobody's probably complained, they would have complained to town hall if there was an issue, but, yeah.
I think we would have heard something in the last number of years.
Right.
It's amazing that 19 years later, we're still trying to finish it. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion that application IW 24-06 is not a significant activity to complete the work originally approved in IW 0507 for the Fox Hollow / Silver Ridge Active Adult Development located at Silver Ridge Lane. Applicant Attorney Kevin McSherry on behalf of Jared Tunney, the contract purchaser.
You don't have the next.
Oh, good, I'm just going with the flow here. All right, and is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Two, all in favor?
aye,
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good rest of the night.
Thank you. All right, old business item C. Commission discussion regarding cease and correct order for 130 Rubber Avenue Friendly Restaurant.
I received an email from the applicant, and they're asking that they can come in December. They're working on a plan for a permanent fix over there. So that's what's going on with that.
Okay. So I'm fine with that. I'd rather than come with, you know, better plans than nothing to that, but fine. Okay. Item 5, new business, commission discussion decision regarding cease and correct order for 83 Prospect Street, Vincent Legacy.
Okay, you have the pictures, the letter,
Yes.
the letter I sent out and the pictures before. I have a couple of pictures here. He did clean out the brook, all the debris is gone. And he even did around that bridge there, which was actually the person behind his property. So we're trying to just get up the pictures I have. They're under.
Yeah, we'll see these over it and then, yeah, what's on that? It's true. It's good right now. 82 Prospect, yeah. Yeah.
So if you look at the picture in your packet, you can see that blue pipe sticking out and it had all the brush there. Brian, can you see this?
Yes,
Should have it 6 photos, yeah.
Okay, so this is what it looks like now. The debris is gone, you can see what's left there, and then there's
Wait.
one up.
wait, no, actually I can't.
Share the screen. If you have to remind. Hold on one second, Brian.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay,
Oh, see it now.
so this, so you have the picture in your packet where that blue pipe is sticking out and there was all.
Yep.
So this is what it looks like now. So that's all we have to do is report on this.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Okay, and he's done with it, right? Everything's
He-
complete on this?
Right.
Okay. It's back to normal, so to speak. Item 6 is correspondence, and it does not look like we really, well, we have a couple of,
That's all.
Letters, but that's-
hearing.
yeah, that's in the, those will be marked down, and then item 7, the WO report, applicant IW 20-08, commercial development at 0 Prospect Street, applicant is Magdi Babawi on Squadros.
I don't believe he's back in the country yet.
Okay, we'll just keep that on the agenda.
Yeah.
Application IWAA 2303 for addition located at 707-709 Rubber Avenue. The applicant is Dion Xavier.
Talked to him today. They're still working on the inside. They have electrical and engine and insulation to do. And they also need to redo some of the outside stairs and replace some of the siding. So they're keeping the silt fence up.
Okay. We'll just keep that on. Application IW 2307 for pedestrian walkway over Fulling Mills Brook located at 0 Prospect Street, account 060-7050 and 47 Prospect Street. The applicant is P&M Property Management.
No change yet. I talked to him several times a month to ask when he'll be doing the work.
Did he get no
He didn't
estimate?
give me a date, so I'll try to get a date.
So wait, so that we can take it on the agenda, if we really don't need to.
Okay.
Okay. Item D, commission discussion decision regarding application IW 2404 for a self-reported violation of permit IW 1408. Located at 1419 Haven Road. The applicant is Kyle Pustula and Associated Consulting Engineers.
Okay, so Jim and I were out there yesterday. They did all the plantings. We'll bring up a picture. We have a bond in place, a cash bond. When they removed the invasives, they used the machine to scrape them out. No
So
spray.
that was the Japanese knotweed that they were supposed to have a plan for, so that's what they did, okay.
I sent them a picture of our conservation easement sign and I'm
Okay.
having those made up to be installed.
And those are gonna be, we're gonna install, what, 3 of those? We're gonna install 3 for 4, perfect.
So.
Somebody should, now if people read them, that's even better. Okay,
Correct.
all right, very good. All right, let's move to.
Oh, here's the pictures
Got
if you wanted to see.
Oh, that looks good. Okay,
You could click on them.
all right. Yeah, I think we can remove this from the agenda. We don't need to keep this in. Yeah, item D.
Remove,
Okay. Yeah,
And when they wanna come back in, to have their bond reduced, then we'll have them back on.
yes. Yes. Okay. Item 8A, administrative business, administrative report for special permit application for a proposed church to be located at 727 Rubber Ave, which is the Mountain View Plaza. Applicant is the Pentecostals of Naugatuck. But this is all just, I mean, it's in the plaza, they're not
It's in the
adding
plaza.
anything.
It's a special permit, so with the special permit, they need a report from wetlands. So that's why it's administrative. I gave a report. They're doing no work outside and the brook is all the way across the parking lot.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, any questions from the commissioners on that? No. Okay, very good.
Still have a few more minutes. Do you wanna just go over the rules of it? The public hearing,
Let's take 5 minutes. We'll reconvene at 7.
okay.
All right, thank you. Call this public hearing to order. Oh, I'm sorry.
The other one.
You could have put your button. This is for the public, hearing for the Blue Water Group. Activities considered significant regarding an application for the Blue Water Project IW 24-05. A distribution center to be located at 0 Pondview Drive, 0 Waterbury Road, 0 Great Hill Road, 191 Sheridan Drive, and 0 Sheridan Drive. The applicant is BMG Waterbury. And just to note that, you know, we're opening it today on 11/7 and it has to close by 12/12 unless there's an extension requested by the applicant. So I just would like to set a couple ground rules, as I always do when we have a public hearing. This is for inland wetlands issues. Please, if you're going to comment on something, please stick to just inland wetland issues. Please refrain from anything regarding zoning or fire commission or traffic. There's nothing that we can do here about that. Please save that for those public hearings should they happen. Also, rudeness or harassment will not be tolerated from anyone, whether it's up here or out there. So if that happens, you'll be asked to leave. And if you don't leave, you'll be removed. Okay, and that goes for anybody in this room. So it's just, there's no need for it. So we're not gonna have it. Also, if you could please limit your comments to 2 minutes. We do have a lot of people here and we want to give everybody an opportunity to be able to speak on an inland wetland issue regarding this project. Okay, so thank you in advance for your cooperation. It's much appreciated by the commissioners and the staff here, as well as I'm sure the rest of the public and the applicants. Thank you. Those that would like to have speak here, please make sure you sign up next to the podium and put your name and address on there. And when you do come up to speak, please state your name and address for the record. Okay.
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. She's just marking it down.
Okay, you can mark it.
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, and we'll go to public comment that's in this room currently. And then after that's all done, we'll go to the people that are on Zoom so they can comment if they wish. All right. Okay, first I'm going to go to the applicant.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the commission. My name is Tom Cody. I'm an attorney at the firm of Robinson and Cole. Our office is located in Hartford, and I am here representing the applicant, BMG Waterbury LLC. First, just a couple of housekeeping items before we dive into our presentation. Regarding a couple of matters of legal notice, we did do the certified mailing to all of the property owners within 50 feet pursuant to the regulations, and we have, before the hearing, submitted copies of all of the receipts, the letter that was sent, the materials that were sent out, the list of owners that were sent out. That was done. The land use staff also posted 3 signs on public streets around the property. And we were aware of that, and members, folks from my office did go out and take pictures of the signs and sort of document the signs and kept going back to confirm that they were still up. We did prepare an affidavit regarding those signs, and I'd like to submit that now for the record.
Please do. Thank you.
So this evening for our presentation, we have 3 people that will address the commission. First will be Joshua Garifano. He's a senior vice president with Blue Water Property Group. And he will give you an introduction to the project and the property and the application. And then following that will be Tim Underko, a professional engineer with Langen. And he will go through the site plan show you how the stormwater management plan has been designed and some other key engineering items, soil erosion and sediment control plan. And then Dean Gustafson, our professional wetland scientist with Ballpoints Technology, will describe for you the wetland resources that are on the site and in the area, as well as his review of the project and how the project lays out on the site relative to the wetland resources. I do have the professional resumes for both Mr. Underko and Mr. Gustafson. I'd like to submit them for the record. I also have courtesy copies for the commission members.
Thank you.
I would also like to recognize Christina Bernardin, who is on Zoom. Christina has been sort of our team leader through so many meetings. And she's not able to be here in person this evening. We do want to recognize that she is on Zoom with the team and may participate at some point if appropriate. By way of introduction, the property involved in this project is about 183 acres in size. 114 acres of that is in Waterbury, and about 69 acres is here in Naugatuck. The ownership for this property really consists of 3 different property owners. City of Waterbury owns the bulk of the land. The borough and the Waterbury Development Corporation owns 1 parcel, and then Amazon.com owns a 3rd parcel. So because the project is located in both municipalities, we are processing land use applications in both Waterbury and Naugatuck. So right now, the stage of the proceedings is the inland wetland permit applications. We have also submitted an application in Waterbury. The Waterbury Inland Wetland Commission held a public hearing last night, and they did vote unanimously to approve the wetland application for the Waterbury portion of the project. Tonight, of course, we'll be discussing with you the Naugatuck portion of the project. Where we will go after the Wetland Commission is we will be filing a special permit application with the Zoning Commission because the use requires a special permit. That will involve a referral to the Planning Commission, the Fire Commission, the Police Commission, the WPCA. They will also all be reviewing this application. Everyone will be getting sort of their piece of the different aspects of the project. In particular, as the chair mentioned at the start of the meeting, the Zoning Commission will be having a public hearing on the special permit application. There will be lots of advance notice of that hearing, and members of the public will have a chance to address the Zoning Commission and hear about the issues within the Zoning Commission's jurisdiction. So with that, I'd like to have our PowerPoint get teed up, and I'll have Josh Garofano start us off.
Full screen that maybe for as big as it's big as it is.
Is it this family right up here? Yeah. Right up there. Yeah. Yeah, see that? See up there? You got it there. There.
But if you gets for the Zoom, that's okay.
All right. Good evening, Commission. Thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you. My name is Joshua Garofano, for the record, Senior Vice President of Construction and Development at Blue Water Property Group. We are the applicant. As Mr. Cody said last night, we had a great meeting in Waterbury. Hope to do the same tonight. A lot of great questions came out of the meeting last night from the public. I assume the same tonight. And we'd love to walk through those, so we'll be looking forward to the open discussion portion. For those who haven't been to any of the public forums that Christina or myself have held in the last probably year and change, I'm going to do a 5-minute overview of just what the building is and what the project is, which is not overly related to the wetlands itself. But just some context for everybody, and anybody who hasn't been in any of the previous sessions. So with that, I'll hop in. Next slide, you can hop down to the project team slide. One more. So project team, Blue Water Property Group, we are the developer. We are a 30-year plus company who has developed with Amazon for probably 20 of those 30 years. We've developed this building currently in Johnston, Rhode Island, which we are currently finishing, and in Charlton, Massachusetts, which we are also currently finishing. And we are moving down to hopefully be equally as successful in Waterbury. As everybody knows, Amazon is our tenant in tow and will be the tenant and owner of the property and building when we are complete. And then I'm not going to go through the whole project team, but you will hear from Langen tonight, who is our site civil engineer. They've also done traffic and a number of other environmental, number of other things on the project. And then Dean Gustafson from All Points Technology, who's one of our main speakers, obviously, tonight regarding the wetlands. Next slide. So quick rendering for those who haven't seen it in previous meetings. This is just a rendered view, bird's eye view of what the building will look like once it is constructed and where it will kind of sit in the overall area. Next slide. So what is the building? The building is a retail distribution facility. We consider it, and Amazon consider it, a first mile distribution facility. First mile is basically the first time product comes into a building and gets stored. So if any of you are sellers of toothpaste, you ship your toothpaste to Amazon, Amazon will store it inside this warehouse on floors 2 through 5. Then when somebody else in this room buys that toothpaste, they'll be picked, packed, and sent out of this facility to another facility via zip code coding. And that will be more of a last mile or middle mile facility. Those can be another Amazon facility, which you see similar to the one in New Haven, where you see the little trucks running around your neighborhoods, delivering actual Amazon packages. It could be USPS, it could be FedEx. So there's many ways they could get their package, but this is the first mile. So this is storage of all of their products that they sell. This is a 24/7 operation, 365. They run 2 or 3 shifts. It depends on what they decide when operations gets into the building. The building itself is a 650,000 square foot footprint on the main floor, and then there's floors 2 through 5, which is where all the goods are stored. The main floor is all packaging, shipping, picking, and then operations for the building. The total square footage is a little over 3.2 million square feet. The building is primarily constructed of insulated metal panel at the top, which is color coded to Amazon's liking, along with insulated metal panels at the top, and precast concrete panels for the remainder of the building. Next slide, please. Just some high level project benefits. Obviously, this is a huge building. We're developing a very large piece of land. Obviously, the building is readily assessed over $150 million in many of the municipalities we built this in. So that is an increase, obviously, to the current tax base and current use of the property. Permanent jobs. Like I said, it's a 365 facility, 24/7. There are estimated to be, God bless you, between 500 and 1,000 permanent jobs within the facility once they are open and running kind of full steam. We generally believe it's a little more, but like to be conservative in what we put out into the public forum. Construction jobs, have a lot of union fellows in the building tonight. Thank you for your attendance and support. As many of these big jobs, a lot of union participation on all these buildings. My job up in Rhode Island was 90 some odd % union, and we had probably 70 to 80% union in Charlton, Mass. So a lot of union participation, a lot of construction jobs, 300 plus construction jobs during the project, and on a kind of peak day in the middle of the project when we're running full bore, there'll be 400 to 500 people on site every day working. It'll be hard to notice when you're in the building or when you're on the site, but it's a tremendous amount of people. Other benefits, obviously, is all of the construction workers, all of the subs to the subs are all in your community and going to your mom and pop shops, eating at your pizzerias, going to the gas stations. So other avenues outside of the construction field obviously get helped and see economic impact in the positive. So with that, I don't want to take up too much more time. I'm going to turn it to Tim Underco from Langen, and we will hop into wetland specific items.
Good evening, Tim Undergo, professional engineer at Langen, office at 555 Long Wharf Drive in New Haven. Just to orient everyone, put up an aerial photo here. That horizontal line that you see through the middle of the map is the City of Waterbury, Borough of Naugatuck division line. So we are talking about everything south of that line or down the page tonight. And the totals, as Attorney Cody mentioned, about 68 acres of land on the south side of that. The parcels are labeled in some yellow, orange, and blue text to signify which parcels are involved in the project. And access to these parcels will be through Great Hill Road and Sheridan Drive. Go to the next slide, please. If you've had a chance to review any of the materials that we submitted, this is the overall site plan. It expands on some of the commentary you've heard about the building. It is supported with surface parking as well as a parking deck. The parking deck is fully located in Waterbury, and about 100 of the 1,000 parking spaces are located south of the line in the borough. Two driveways on the map. One on the left-hand side connects to Sheridan, and one on the right-hand side connects to Great Hill Road. Dean Gusterson, with all points, will kind of walk you through the various wetlands that exist on the property and surround us. But I'll take you through some of the engineering on the grand scale of the project and how we kind of came to the design that we concluded with and have submitted as part of the application. Next slide, please. So a big part of what we've spent a lot of time to date on, in addition to the layout, orientation of the building, design of retaining walls, grading, and some of the other materials in the package, is stormwater management, kind of one of the key components that we spend a lot of time on as part of the inland wetland application. And this highlights in various colors all of the best management practices that we have incorporated into the engineered systems that exist on the site. Next slide, please. And I'll highlight those in kind of a treatment train, because that's really how these systems work on site. It isn't a singular component that captures and treats stormwater. There are a number of features that move in sequential order from the drop of rainfall to the actual discharge off site. So the first step in that stormwater management is catch basins. Those catch basins convey water through a pipe network. And if you've been involved in or I've heard presentations on stormwater treatment, the first stop that we have in renovating and cleaning that stormwater is a hydrodynamic separator, basically a swirl chamber that allows materials that float to be trapped at the top, and heavy materials like sand and dirt and rocks to fall out of the water and be captured in the chamber. As that water leaves that initial round of treatment, it goes to an underground detention system where we're actually able to meter the rate at which water leaves the site and leaves the individual components. Kind of unique and really a function of the new Connecticut Stormwater Manual, which I believe went live in July of 2024. We have filter media that will actually filter the water as it leaves that underground detention system before it continues to move downstream. After it leaves the filter medium, we have bioretention or biofiltration basins, which are a picture of a typical one is in the lower left-hand corner. So we've gone from under the pavement in pipes to concrete chambers, which are at the top left, We've passed water through a filter system, and we're now out of the pipe and into daylight, and we go to basins. From those basins, we continue to meter the water out again and make sure that we're putting water back to the on-site features, wetlands and whirlpools that Dean will talk about, at a rate consistent with and in a location consistent with how those features are fed today. So in total, we have 6 underground detention systems. Top left photo, we actually have 7 filter systems. Each of the underground systems has a filter, one of them has 2. We have 5 basins that take water out of those systems, and we have 5 level spreaders which knock out the velocity and slow the water for eventual discharge. Next slide. And one thing that we are asking for as part of the application is a waiver to one component of the Connecticut Stormwater Manual. If you've had a chance to read the peer review letter by Ty and Bond, the first bullet here was raised and discussed, and my office and your peer reviewer went back and forth on a discussion of this. And I thought it was important to bring up while we're talking about stormwater. The new Connecticut Stormwater Manual has 4 standards that they look for as part of a development project. One is runoff volume and pollution reduction. So that's number 1. All of those things that I talked about for on the previous slide with regards to detention, the filters, the basins, that's how we meet that first standard. The second standard is stormwater runoff quantity control, which is this slide. It has 6 or 7 components in it. The one that has the X next to it at the top is the one that we're not able to meet fully. And we have a number of reasons why. Every other item under this standard, we're able to meet. 10-year control, 100-year control, beyond 100-year control, conveyance protection, emergency outlet sizing. We're able to hit all those, but that first one, as part of this submission, we are requesting a waiver. And that is a function of the stormwater regs for the borough. They identify the kind of latest and current stormwater manual from the state to be the guiding design document for applications that come in front of you. So we're gonna continue to talk about that, but 4 standards, we meet completely 3 of the standards. 1 standard, there's 1 item that we're asking for an exemption on. And you go to the next slide, I'll highlight it and give you a little bit of background on what it is. So the standard that we're asking for a waiver on is the new stormwater manual asks that 2-year storm events be reduced to 50% of the rate pre-development. So a normal standard and most design criteria is that you match or reduce what happens existing with your proposed project. This asterisk that we're asking for is a new requirement for taking the 2-year storm and actually cutting it in half. That standard did exist in the prior version of the Connecticut Stormwater Manual, but it was really focused on sites where you had a direct discharge to a stream, and they wanted development projects to try and minimize the flashiness and the blast of water that would come through a stream in some smaller storms. That's been rolled in to this second standard completely. And we have a number of reasons why we believe a waiver request is appropriate. 1, this standard is really most appropriate on sites where you have the ability to infiltrate your stormwater. Existing soil on site has very low permeability, on the order of about 1/10 of 1 inch an hour. So the ability to take stormwater and push it back to the ground is not possible because of the existing soil conditions. It doesn't do that today, and we wouldn't be able to do it in the future. That's the first bullet in the second blue box. Another reason why we think the waiver is appropriate is in order to reduce those rates to a level that meets this standard, you end up choking or shrinking the pipe that leaves the detention system to such a size that it's susceptible to clogging. So the analogy I used last night was the downspout on your gutter. The bigger your downspout opening, easier it is for water to pass through it. If you were to shrink your downspout to a small enough size, a single leaf could block it, maple seeds could block it. And that's true in stormwater management systems where we use openings, we use walls to gauge and control the rate at which water leaves the system. And if you make a hole too small, you effectively got to change the system completely because it's clogged and it can't function. So in order to meet that standard, we would end up with a hole that's so small that we don't think it's an appropriate engineering solution, and have included as one of the reasons and one of the discussion points. The third bullet is in order to reduce those flows, you can also just make all of your stormwater management systems bigger. Well, at some point you make them big enough where we end up needing more site disturbance. We have to clear more trees. We have to make things bigger with really no benefit other than maybe helping us get a little bit closer to this criteria. So we didn't think it was appropriate to have more land disturbance to get us to that point. And we also have a kind of a unique scenario. And if you go to the next slide, this is kind of the last bullet on it. Part of the difficulty in us getting to that 50% reduction is that that entire area in yellow is property that is not controlled by the applicant, is two existing industrial complexes that discharge their water over their property lines into ours. The regulations make no distinction between just your water that you're responsible for. It identifies that the analysis needs to be done at where water leaves your site. So we would essentially have to take 40 acres of water that's not ours, that exists from someone else's stormwater management system, and try and hold it back to further reduce the rate that we leave. We are able to take that, manage it, hold it back to allow us to not exceed what leaves the site today, but can't pull that number all the way down to half of what it is. And this is really one of the kind of biggest driving forces. So we have about 86 acres of land in Naugatuck on the property. This is another 40 acres that contribute to that stormwater management system. So I wanted to flag that now. Again, it is discussed in the peer review letter. Not sure if staff will have a chance to discuss the dialogue that we've had on it, but thought it was important to raise now and walk through some of the specifics and kind of how we came to the conclusions that we made as part of the discussion with your peer reviewer. Let's see, next slide, please. Another kind of major component of the application is a soil erosion and sediment control plan. We have, in part of the drawing set, included a 3-phase approach. So we identify appropriate soil erosion and sediment control measures when work starts, clearing begins, earthwork begins. We recognize that this is a construction site, and what happens day one is very different than the day when the site's paved and the building's up and final stormwater management features are being completed. So we have the first phase, which identifies how to properly protect on and off-site resources while the initial work starts. We include a second phase of, okay, earthwork or initial clearing has been done, retaining walls are being built, the site is being leveled, what components are appropriate at that phase. And then we included a third phase that identifies, okay, walls are complete, we've begun paving, we have catch basins installed. How do you modify the soil erosion and sediment control measures along that path to protect the resources? So that first bullet is the phase soil erosion and sediment control plan, which is in your packet. The second bullet is, in addition to everything that we do locally with Naugatuck and Waterbury, because the project is more than 5 acres of disturbance, we're required to secure a construction activities general permit from Connecticut Deep. That application will be prepared by us and is required to be peer reviewed by a third-party engineer, not Langen and not Time Bond peer reviewer. So we will bring in another engineering firm to review the materials that we prepared as part of that permit application. They will review all the forms, they'll review all the documents, they can make commentary, they could ask for revisions. And when we submit that permit, they will also submit a concurrence that we have designed appropriate measures in accordance with state standards. With that general permit comes a requirement for weekly monitoring and inspection, as well as monitoring inspection after storm events. So every week during the course of the project, this site has to be reviewed from a soil erosion and sediment control plan standpoint. That those materials have to be available to the state at any time. So a binder usually lives in the trailer. There's usually a map on the wall. And as work progresses, the contractor can adjust and note either revisions, amendments, or changes that they made based on field conditions. So site will be covered by the stormwater general permit. The third bullet there, I mentioned the third-party peer reviewer, which is required as part of our permit submission. And the last bullet covers that weekly inspection that will occur once disturbance begins. In addition, as part of the conditions last night in Waterbury, the city is requiring their own third-party inspector to conduct site inspections relative to soil erosion and sediment control. So in addition to the requirements the developer and construction team will have, the city has also required the engagement of a responsible party to report to them. And then after all the work is done, if you made it to page 1146 in the stormwater management report, you'll see that we have an operations and maintenance plan that talks about all of the components that I highlighted in the stormwater management plan and the proper procedures for review, inspection, cleaning, so that moving forward, they're not lost and forgotten. There's a paper trail on what's there and how to maintain it. So with that, I will turn it over to Dean, who will highlight, unless Tom wants to talk first.
I'm Cody again. I just want to add one point to Tim's comments. Ty and Bond was hired by the borough and the city to perform the role of an independent third-party review of the technical components of the application, specifically the stormwater management plan and the wetland assessment that was done by All Points Technology. So you may have seen in your packet, they prepared an initial letter. It had questions and comments. Our team, Langen and All Points, responded to that. And then Ty and Bond prepared a follow-up to that. They're here, two representatives from them are here this evening. They may have a role to present, but I wanted to just point out, when we mentioned Ty and Bond, they were the consultant that the borough and the city hired for the purposes of reviewing our application. So anyway, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dean Gustafson. I'm a senior wetland scientist, professional soil scientist with All Points Technology, Waterford, Connecticut. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to discuss tonight, all the information is contained in the wetland assessment report that's been issued as part of the wetland permit application. We'll talk about the wetlands themselves, the project's regulated activities, and our extensive mitigation plan that we're proposing to offset some of the minor regulated activities. So on this particular slide, what we're showing here is the wetlands that we delineated back in 2022 and then updated that mapping this past spring. Those wetland areas are shown as a shaded green area. And then surrounding those wetland areas is a darker green dash line that represents the 100-foot upland review area that's regulated by your commission. There are 3 wetlands that are located within the borough of Naugatuck. And starting from the far western end, there's a small isolated wetland that we identify as wetland 10. Next to that one, just to the east, and this is on the parcel that's identified as 191 Sheridan Drive, is a narrow linear wetland feature that drains to the south, that's identified as wetland 7, that drains through a culvert system underneath Sheridan Drive. And then on the far eastern end of the site is a large wetland complex identified as wetland 8/9. And at the far southern end of that wetland system, Fraser, thank you, Deb. So at the far end of that is this area shaded in blue, which I identify as vernal pool 1. And that vernal pool is primarily located on the adjacent parcel to the south. As part of our wetland investigation and evaluation, we evaluated a bunch of the values of these wetland systems. As I noted, wetland 10 is a relatively small isolated wetland, and as such, it has limited function and value. It's an isolated hillside seep system, so its primary function is groundwater recharge discharge, as well as wetland 7 is a similar feature. It's a little bit larger in size. It's a little bit more linear shaped and has some interior intermittent flows that capture some of the groundwater seepage from areas further to the north and then drain to the south. So it has similar principal groundwater recharge discharge function. Wetland 8/9 is associated with an unnamed perennial stream that flows to the north into Waterbury. And that is a much larger forested wetland complex system. It's associated with that perennial stream as well as the large vernal pool system that's located just to the south off-site. And as such, it has comparatively the highest level of function and values of any of the wetland systems on this project site within Naugatuck. It functions as groundwater recharge, sediment nutrient removal, water quality function, and wildlife habitat is principal functions of that wetland system. And I misspoke, so this feature we identify actually as vernal pool 2. So vernal pool 1 is located in Naugatuck to the north.
Waterbury.
Thank you. Waterbury. Next slide, please. So the property was also evaluated for state and federal listed rare species and found not to contain any threatened or endangered classified species. It was identified through our consultation with the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Natural Diversity Database, determined that there was a potential for 2 state listed special concern species. There were records in the vicinity, not on the actual property, but in the vicinity. As a conservative evaluation, we assessed the site for a possible presence of eastern box turtle, as well as Horace's dusky wing. And for the dusky wing, we surveyed the site for the host plants that are utilized by that species, which are primarily oaks, dogbane, buttonbush, and goldenrod. The turtle evaluation survey was conducted by one of the leading experts, herpetologist experts in the state. They were conducted over a series of 3 days back in June of 2022. And no turtles, no box turtles were identified as part of that survey work. We did identify various of the host plants, which those host plants are fairly common species, particularly in this type of community, the mesic forest, dry mesic forest habitat. And we identified locations both within the proposed project limits as well as extensive areas outside of the project's limited disturbance and other areas of the essentially scattered across both the north, south, and east and west areas of the site that will be remain unaltered. We submitted the results of those surveys to the Natural Diversity Database folks. Even though we didn't find any box turtles, we included both protection and conservation measures for the turtles. And also protection and enhancement plantings for the host plants for dusky wing. The department reviewed those reports and our proposed mitigation, and protection and conservation measures. And, they agreed with our assessment and determined that the project would not have an adverse effect on state listed species. One major component of, and they'll be discussed when we get to the slides talking about the overall mitigation plan, is a conservation easement that's located along the eastern side of the site. It totals about 33 acres. It's a little bit more than, I think, about 12 acres in Naugatuck, 13 acres in Naugatuck, that will be protected in perpetuity for that habitat. That includes the highest functioning wetland system, wetland 8/9, as well as some of the adjoining terrestrial upland forested habitat for these species. Next slide, please. We also evaluated the property for potential to contain historic and archaeological resources through various investigations and consultations with the State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO. A couple of different surveys were performed throughout the property, and the heritage consultant did not find any resources eligible for National Register listing. Those results of those surveys were submitted to the SHPO office for review, as well as the conclusions. And the SHPO office agreed that the proposed project would not have an adverse effect on historic and archaeological resources. And a letter to that effect is provided in attachment E, or a wetland assessment report. Next slide, please. So the next few slides will start talking about some of the proposed activities of the project that are located within the regulated areas under the purview of this commission. The proposed project has been successfully designed to avoid any wetland impacts. There are 0 wetland impacts for this project. Also, encroachment to the 100-foot upland review area has been minimized through incorporation of engineering controls, namely extensive use of retaining walls that limit the extent of the project's limit of disturbance. So this slide shows a total of 5 areas that will show some slides or some details moving forward. But the 5 areas where there are regulated activities, essentially small encroachments into the upland review area. There's a little area just to the east of wetland 10, and for wetland 7, just to the north and south, and then wetland 8 and 9. Small area associated with this basin over here, and then there is a small area associated with the retaining wall in that location. So what's shown on this map, those kind of pink shaded or red shaded areas are the areas of encroachment to the 100-foot upland review area. In total, that there's a little more than 9/10 of an acre of encroachment into the upland review area. Many of those areas are on the outer limits of the upland review area. And when you consider that there is a total of over 12 acres of upland review area within Naugatuck on this project, the project represents less than 8% of activity within that upland review area. What's also shown on this slide there are some green shaded areas adjacent to them. We'll talk about more detail in some subsequent slides in the presentation, but those areas represent enhancements to the upland review area. Of the total, essentially 9/400 of an acre of upland review area activity, a little less than a quarter of an acre represents permanent impact. All the rest are approximately 7/10 of an acre of the activities in the upland review area are considered temporary in nature, and they'll be restored through various native plantings. I will point out that there's no impact at all to vernal pool 2 And then this dash line that surrounds it represents a 100-foot offset from that vernal pool. It's called the vernal pool envelope. There's no encroachment or disturbance within that vernal pool envelope is either. The 100-foot zone around the vernal pool is critical for the obligate species that we observe breeding in there, namely spotted salamander and wood frog. And those immediately adjacent areas are used as the adults move into the pool during the breeding season in the early spring, and then emigrate back out into the surrounding forested habitats. And then as well as the juveniles, once they mature and start moving out, that first 100-foot is a critical zone for those species. Next slide, please. So we'll get into a little bit more detailed discussion of where these encroachments are into the upland review area. We'll start with wetland. This is wetland 10. There's a small little strip right here. You see this line right here represents limited disturbance associated with one of the proposed access roads. That is a temporary disturbance there. It's mainly to allow for installation of appropriate erosion sedimentation controls. So that's not a permanent impact there. It's just, it's fairly minor in nature. For wetlands, this is wetland 7 right here. The north end, there's a stormwater biofiltration basin, and from that there'll be an outfall structure that will discharge to the north of wetland 7, and that will help feed and maintain the hydrology that's feeding that wetland system. So that's again more of a temporary feature, and it's a requirement to be able to get the treated stormwater to that location and maintain the hydrology of that wetland system. For the south end, we have a little bit different situation. This is essentially right at the tail end is where there's a head wall with dual culverts that discharge into an underground system that eventually discharges under Sheridan Drive. There is an existing paved access and then paved parking area associated with that existing vacant industrial building. So a lot of that shaded area is existing pavement that's going to get replaced with pavement. That's obviously a permanent impact, but it's an existing impact and disturbance. And then the green area just to the north is one of the areas where we're doing enhancements, where we're actually removing some pavement that exists today and replacing it with native shrubs, trees, and conservation seed mix to kind of restore some of the function of that upland review area to that section of the wetland. Next slide, please. So for this one, these are relatively small areas associated with kind of the western limits of wetland 8 and 9. There is a small little area. This is one of the biofiltration basins. That's the outfall feature just to the west. We have a little bit of encroachment in the upland review area within that zone that's associated with grading of the basin and constructing that feature, making sure that we're putting back treated stormwater and feeding that section of the wetland system. And then just to the north of it, you can see a little bit of red shading here that's associated with the retaining wall, and that's really a function of this wetland boundary. You can see the wetland boundary kind of jumps and heads a little bit to the west before it dies back down. The main stem of that wetland system. That area is, you can see that line right there is the pavement edge. So there'll be some type of, between the retaining wall and the pavement edge, there'll be some type of landscaping vegetation within that area. So those are the kind of the detailed looks at where those minor regulated activities are with just, slight encroachments into the upland review area. Next slide, please. So various alternatives were evaluated, as well as looking at a possible no-build alternative, and that's pretty standard course, we're doing an alternatives analysis for a wetland application. Considering this property is part of the existing industrial park and is appropriately zoned and located to support the proposed development, the no build is not considered a prudent alternative. We did look at various alternatives for the proposed development. Those were evaluated as part of this alternatives analysis, and through extensive iterative design process, the wetland and 100-foot upland review area encroachments were successively reduced through that process until all the direct wetland impacts were eliminated, and the encroachment into the 100-foot upland review area was reduced to the small area possible required to support the proposed development program. This resulted in the preferred alternative that is proposed as part of this application, which is considered the most prudent and feasible alternative. Next slide, please. Thank you. So to compensate for the project's minor activities in upland review area, we devised a fairly exhaustive mitigation plan. Having been a wetland consultant for 35 years in Connecticut, I've been part of a lot of developments. And I can honestly say that, for this project, for the minor amount of regulated activities, we have a very comprehensive mitigation plan put together for this project. And so I'll go through some of the elements included as part of that. So on this slide, as noted earlier, we're showing various upland review area enhancements shaded in green down in this location, surrounding wetlands 8 and 9 in proximity to Whirlpool 2, and then in this area to the southern portion of wetland 7. And so what we'll be doing as part of that enhancement work is in the understory of some of these areas, there's a dominance or presence of invasive woody plants, invasive woody shrubs, invasive vines like Cassia bittersweet. Those will be properly removed, and then we will replant those with a wide variety of native trees, shrubs, and conservation seed mix to enhance the function and value of those buffer areas. And in particular, what it will do is enhance both the water quality functions of those buffers with those dense plantings, as well as improve the wildlife habitat function of those areas. And that obviously supports those adjacent wetland areas as well. So I already talked about the total area of upland review area that the project approaches on is 9,400 of an acre. In total, we're looking at 2.18 acres of enhancements to upland review area. So you look at enhancement to impact, we're greater than a 2-to-1 ratio for that area. Next slide, please. So as I indicated earlier, there are a number of elements that comprise the comprehensive mitigation plan. I already discussed the buffer enhancement components that will support those adjacent wetland areas. There, I already talked about the conservation easement, which is a fairly large area that will protect the highest functioning wetland system, wetland 8 and 9, and some of the vernal pool habitat in perpetuity. We also have some conservation and protection measures that we will employ both during construction and post-construction, including a wetland and rare species and vernal pool protection plan that will be implemented during construction. What we will do for that, and we've implemented this on numerous large development sites across Connecticut, it'll include a component of setting up a pre-construction meeting with the contractors and going over awareness training and sensitivity with respect to the project setting, its proximity to wetland resources, proximity to sensitive aquatic resources, and the need to properly maintain erosion sedimentation control measures, to not extend any equipment or manpower beyond those areas. And we maintain that through, installation of, an isolation barrier set up along the perimeter of the site that also serves as, your primary erosion sedimentation control measures. Once the permanent controls are installed and before any heavy earthwork begins, we will sweep the entire interior, portion of the project area. So we'll take any wildlife, any snakes, any frogs, any salamanders that we see, we'll move them to the outside of the isolation barriers. And then once that area is cleared, they'll allow construction activities to be initiated. And then throughout the entire duration of the project, we'll be monitoring those perimeter controls. We'll be also installing some signage to maintain contractor awareness. And for each of our inspections, we will be generating a report with details on what was observed, and also provide photographic documentation. And those reports will be submitted to staff on a regular basis to document that the monitoring, the protection plan is being properly implemented. For the upland review area enhancement planting plan, we'll be monitoring installation of those plants. And then we'll also be monitoring that for a period 3 years after that growing season ends, to ensure that there's good survivorship of those species, the invasive species aren't getting another foothold in the area, and to ensure that there's actual enhancement to those buffer zones long-term in support of the adjacent wetland areas. And then finally, as Tim had touched on, for Connecticut Deep Stormwater General Permit, it does require third-party monitoring and submission of those SWIP reports to the state. So there will be oftentimes work in concert with the SWIP monitor on the projects to ensure that we have good coordination because we're looking at similar features, particularly the perimeter erosion control measures. And so there's additional alternatives from other monitoring requirements by the state for the project that will also serve as protection for the wetland areas from any incidental impacts during construction. Next slide, please. So before I get into the summary, as Attorney Cody had referenced just recently, the borough had engaged a peer reviewer, and that included review of our wetland assessment report. They had some comments on that report. We submitted responses to those comments, and those were all satisfied by your peer reviewer. So we have no outstanding items in that regard. So in summary, the project avoids direct wetland impacts and minimizes encroachment into the 100-foot upland review area. And it represents the most prudent feasible alternative. So in my professional opinion, the project will not result in a likely adverse impact to wetland resources. As I touched on before, we're looking at less than an acre encroachment of the upland review area, which is a fairly small amount, particularly for a property of this size. And we're looking at a fairly extensive mitigation area with enhancements to the upland review area, as well as a large conservation easement and other protection and conservation measures. So with that, that concludes our presentation. We appreciate the Commission's time and attention to this matter and hope that you will look favorably on the application by granting approval. And at this point, I'll turn it back over to Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right. All right, the commission just has a couple of questions that we'd like to ask the applicant. Marcia, I know you have questions.
Yeah, I was just taking some notes as Dean, the soil scientist reviewers. Probably most of them are for you.
Sure.
Just bear with me because I just sort of highlighted things as you went through your presentation. With the first question I have is, it's probably on my map, but it's really tiny and hard to make out. How close do you actually get? I know you said, most of the construction, there's only one corner of the parking lot that encroaches on the 100-foot upland review area, is that correct?
Yeah, if we can maybe bring back up the slide deck. And maybe Tim's help on trying to estimate the distance.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew somebody would.
So,
Okay, keep going back. All right, here's one, yeah, so these two slides show kind of the detailed areas of our encroachment into the upland review area. So I think for overall for the project, this is probably our closest point is the southern end of wetland 7. But as I indicated, it's existing paved access and paved parking lot.
right,
We're actually retracting that limit of pavement. So we do have some of that work that's fairly close to the wetland edge, because the pavement is probably less than 10 feet from the edge of pavement, so.
I think that's what we saw when I went to gate you. I went out and did a site walk,
Okay,
a couple
great.
weeks ago with, Matt. But, I just want to make sure that I understood where it was. So it's behind the fence where we were let in
Yes.
there. Okay,
Oh, great, yeah. And Tim's telling me we're actually moving it 25 feet away from, so we're retracting the existing edge of pavement 25 feet further away from the wetlands.
okay,
So that's obviously a regulated activity, but it's an enhancement, it's an improvement.
right.
over
So it's a
existing-
temporary disturbance and you're enhancing the area.
That's correct.
Okay. And then, there was another area, was it parking lot that's close or?
So there's, you can go to the next
The
slide.
100-foot, I guess it's not in the wetland area, but it's within the 100-foot review.
That's correct. Yep, so this edge of the retaining wall, we're just clipping the outer limits. So maybe we're 75 feet or so away from the wetland edge of the closest point, that location.
Okay. Got it.
And then we have, for this basin, we have just a small, it's difficult to see on this because the shading is so close, so thin. There's a small area that clips there, and that's part of just the grading of the basin. But that's on the very outer limits of the upland review area.
Okay. And then, with regards to the vernal pool, there's no disturbance at all within, like even during construction, there's within 100 foot of the vernal pool?
That's correct, yeah, so this is essentially the limits, this line work here is the limits of that for a large vernal pool 2, which is mainly off-site, but it does. There's a small little section that encroaches into the project here, and then there's some right along the property boundary, this line right here. So there's no construction activities in that vernal pool or within 100 feet. It's,
How close do you get to the vernal pool, do you know?
so it would be this outfall, so we're just outside of our foot right there, so.
So it's about 100.
Well, so
Or-
that's, yes, yeah, because the wetland boundary and the vernal pool boundary in this location are coincident,
Okay,
so.
so it's 100.
So it's 110 feet, give or take.
Okay. Okay. And that's just construction activity, creating that basin?
Yeah, so this is some grading work, and then this is the outfall structure. So this is the biofiltration basin. Then there'll be an orifice through here to outlet, and this will be in a preformed scour hole, plunge pool, level spreader feature.
And that's where that special fencing is going for the amphibians, so they can't
Yeah,
take it.
yep, that's a great point. Glad you raised that. So and this actually relates to one of the comments we got from the peer reviewer time bond, where we have for all the basins on this side of the project, on the eastern side of the project, we had proposed permanent isolation barrier fencing called annex fencing. That prevents any of the amphibians from going into these basins and potentially breeding in them mistakenly. So they're in the industry, they are called potential decoy pools because they these species are essentially hardwired. If they come to, areas of ponding water, they're very likely to lay their eggs right there, not knowing that the vernal pool is, 110, 120 feet away. So this is a pretty standard practice for these type of features that are within kind of the migration zone of these amphibians. What we ended up doing is through the comments from the peer reviewer is that we have Animex fencing that runs all the way through here as well as along the edge of the base of the retaining wall. Because of the construction of the retaining wall, there's a potential that these amphibians and any reptiles could get, go into the wall, get trapped or injured in some way. So we felt it was a good comment and it provides additional protection for these species.
Can you just, I don't know what the fence looks like. Can you explain how it works?
Yeah, so it's more or less a high density polyethylene fabric. It's not like silt fence. It's like a hard plastic. It's embedded into the ground, so it's keyed into the ground. And we actually have a detail in our plan sheets, but the top of it also runs up and jumps down, so that even if something can try to climb up the fence, which would be pretty difficult, but some tree frogs, sometimes you find them hanging on your windows or doors. If they climb up, they're gonna hit top of the fence. They can't go over the top because it has a reverse lip on it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. And who inspects, like, is this something that needs regular inspection to make sure it's still intact and nothing's happened to it? Is there a plan for that?
So we will, after installation, we will inspect it from kind of a wetland wildlife perspective, make sure that it's properly embedded. We'll be out there during installation and document that. Once it's installed, we are gonna be monitoring this area for 3 years. So, there is a potential that, a tree limb drops down and maybe damages it, but it's a pretty heavy duty fence. It would take essentially a tree toppling over to crush it. If a branch falls down, it'll be fine. And these will stay, they're permanent, they'll last at least 20, 30 years.
Okay. Okay. And then I'm just wondering if there will be any issues with, actual construction. You talked about, I guess, education of the workers and going out and looking for animals, and setting up the barrier. Can you explain more how that's going to work as far as removing anything that doesn't, that you don't want to harm, I guess? Is that what you were getting at?
That's correct. Yeah, we're trying to avoid, injury, mortality to any wildlife during construction. So the project, as part of the overall stormwater and erosion sedimentation control plan and phasing, what will initially happen is that your perimeter controls, your silt fence, straw wattles, compost filter sock, will all get installed around the perimeter of the site first. And then once that's done, we will inspect it, make sure it's installed properly, and also do a sweep of the entire interior area to that. So if there's any snakes, frogs, salamanders, that are within that zone, construction zone, we'll collect those species and put them on the outside of the isolation barrier fencing, which is the silt fence will form essentially an isolation barrier during the course of construction. So we do that. We also, as part of our periodic monitoring, and so once we complete that sweep of the area, we'll allow heavy earthwork to begin within the site. So that way we avoid, the contractors, equipment, whatnot, any mortality or injury to any of the wildlife species. And then during our monitoring of the site, as part of the resource protection plan, we'll also be inspecting the perimeter controls. We'll also continue to kind of sweep the edges in case any other wildlife gets in there, because usually once, for some reason, if something gets in there with construction going on, they'll get pushed and try to seek shelter, which is going to be on the outside of the project. So sometimes we'll find some species trapped in the silt fence, and we'll just pick them up and move them on the other side into the there's a large habitats both to the east and west of the site that are remaining unaltered for the project. So there's plenty of habitat for them to be moved into.
And will when you set up the silt fences, will the salamanders be able to climb over them? And,
No, it's not a concern
okay,
in our experience.
okay. Oh, and then I guess this question, is for Tim.
Sure.
When you were talking about the 2-year storm waiver issue, I just wanted to ask, that wasn't an issue with any of the other storms, the 25-year, the 100-year, it just seems that this 2-year storm is.
Yeah, again, Tim Undergo, professional engineer at Langen. Yeah, the 2-year storm is unique in that the criteria is not just to match existing like the other storms are, it's to cut it in half. So that is a sizable reduction that we're not able to, for those various reasons I listed. All of the other criteria, the larger storm event, even in the 2-year, we were reducing flows, but can't pull them down to half of what they are existing for the reasons I discussed earlier. But 10-year, 25-year, 50-year, 100-year, all of those meet the criteria for the stormwater manual.
Okay. Oh, and how long does the third party monitor the site? Did you say 3 years? The, in the. I forget what's on, you know, how the state has deep has a third party coming in to monitor, is that just during construction or is that post construction as
Sure.
well?
So, yeah, we've got a couple of monitors that overlap each other. So, I would have to look up the exact language. But the deep general permit requires you, to continue the weekly inspections until I believe there's a percentage of establishment for grasses and meadows and basically green. So you're not done just because the site's paved. You're done once the site is paved, the lawns are established. You no longer need the perimeter controls. At that point, you can finish the inspections and file a notice of termination. I'd have to go to the permit to get you the exact wording, but it's more than just, okay, we're done building the building. We're done building the building. If lawn areas don't establish, you're not done. So it may require follow-up. You've seen, if work is done in August and you hydro seed, it's not the best time to hydro seed. So maybe come September, you need to reseed. That could continue until you get to a point where you're established and can verify to the state, under risk of perjury, that the site is complete and stabilized, and then the permit itself can be closed. Dean's work will continue beyond that for a period of 3 years for the establishment of the mitigation areas that he talked about. So
Right.
looking, and as Dean mentioned, and we worked on a number of projects together, if we were involved as the inspector for soil erosion and sediment control, Dean's group would also be looking at perimeter controls, upland review areas, any of the species that we discussed, and you put the report side by side and we're identifying the same thing. Maybe there's a rip in the silt fence, maybe there's a hay bale that needs to be replaced. So, and for some period of time, you really have kind of 2 reports that are looking at very similar features, but Dean's work for the planting and mitigation area would continue for 3 years, even beyond the closure of the state permit.
Okay. And then I guess Dean's probably for you, you talked, you did the wildlife study, was that someone within your group who did it, or did you conduct it, or who did that?
So the wildlife was a combination. It wasn't done by our firm, but we hired 2 consultants. We hired Davidson Environmental, who was looking specifically at the host plants for the dusky ring. They have qualified botanists on staff. And then for the eastern box turtle, the state expert I was referencing is Dennis Quinn. Dennis is very well renowned and actually does some consulting directly for Connecticut Deep in the Natural Diversity Database Group. And he has has expertise in a variety of herpetofauna, fauna, but in particular eastern bog. So those were the people who did those surveys.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But that survey for the turtle was in 2022, correct?
That's correct.
It
And
wasn't recent.
no, it wasn't, but what we did do is we recently, so in your packet, as part of an attachment to our wetland assessment report is an updated determination letter from the Natural Diversity Database. We refreshed that. They didn't feel there was a need to update the surveys at this point. They were comfortable essentially reissuing that determination.
Okay.
That's a good point. Thank you
Yeah.
for making that.
Sure, and then the conservation measures that you're putting in place are going to ensure that if there were box turtles that came in that are now, that they will be safe.
Yeah, well, yeah, for in particular, that's one of the kind of main reasons why we promoted internally with the developer to try to set aside some habitat. Not only protect the largest and highest functioning wetland system and the vernal pools that are embedded within, but also that corridor also supports habitat that could be used by box turtle. Some of that habitat also has the host plants that could be used by dusky wing. And for dusky wing, some of those species that they use for host plants we're also incorporating into some of our seed mixes for some of the conservation areas as well as the upland beaver enhancement areas. But that conservation area in total is 33 acres, pretty large habitat block with a lot of diversity of both terrestrial uplands, forested uplands, as well as forested wetlands. That'll support all of those species, including the potential for eastern box turtle that could move in and out of that area. And that's one of the reasons why DEEP issued their approval letter, because we had such an extensive both mitigation, protection, and conservation measures.
We also pointed out last night in Waterbury, that part of our approval of conditions was that we would record the easement prior to occupancy of the building. That came up last night, just about timing of the easement and granting the easement.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I got right now. Time and ours for review.
Brian, do you have any questions?
You have
We
to
can't,
unmute.
you have to unmute, we can't hear you.
How about now? Can you hear me now? Good.
I can hear you now.
All right. So I was wondering if because you said you filed the inspection reports with the state weekly.
So as part of the resource protection plan, we generate regular reports. Those aren't required to be issued to the state of Connecticut as part of that portion. There are reporting requirements under the stormwater SWIFT permitting monitoring. But our reports will be issued to town staff.
Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Staff have any questions?
You may want to listen to our consultants and get their.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, yeah. If I don't have any
Thank
questions.
you.
You don't have any more questions? Okay. Do you? No, I don't. Yes, you have.
Good evening, for the record, Andrew White with Ty and Bond, we're the borough's peer review for this project. So thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. We did receive back in September, initial package from the applicant and reviewed for both wetlands and for stormwater management. We had developed, I believe, our initial letter that was 9 to 10 pages with our extensive review of the site. Most of the comments that we had provided were more technical and clerical in nature. So a lot of just smaller details. We flagged a few larger items that we went back and forth with the design team on, and that were all addressed to our satisfaction. I think the biggest that the applicant had brought to your attention was that 50% reduction in a 2-year storm that they were not able to meet. We did have additional comments prior
to that comment about providing additional track racks to those orifice openings within their system. So we were already concerned with the size of the orifices of potential blockage. So to meet that criteria and have them reduce that orifice even smaller, we, after going back and forth with the applicant, did concur and agree that reducing those to even smaller numbers to satisfy this requirement was not practical for this site, very specifically for this site. And we heard from the applicant about the soil conditions and how poorly soils were infiltrating. That generally is not the case for other project sites. And in those cases, it's easier to meet that 50% reduction requirement. And in this case, for this particular property, for this particular use, that is not able to be met. So we felt that what they had provided for rationale, what they provided for stormwater measures, was appropriate for the site, was sized correctly for the site, and handled the ultimate use for the project. As also mentioned earlier, we did have a few comments on the wetlands. Matt Reagan, our wetland scientist, is here tonight. I can also opine on what we had discussed, but we had conversations with the applicant. They addressed all of our concerns. And if there's anything in particular you'd like us to address, we could go over it in further detail. But we were very satisfied with the responses we got. The applicant was acknowledged all the comments, was willing to work with us on what we thought were areas that they could enhance their plans to meet the criteria for both the city of Waterbury and Port of Naugatuck.
Hi, my name is Matthew Regan. I'm a professional wetland scientist with Time Bond. I performed the third-party peer review of the wetland delineation that was performed by All Points. I had no requests to change the wetland delineation line. So the boundaries that appear on the plan are correct, and I had no issues with them. Upon reviewing the wetland assessment report, I had some questions that were largely just about vernal pools and also protection measures, restoration measures. A lot of the comments that you had, Marcia, were addressed. So all those comments were addressed. I would have to say that I also concur that after review, I had no further comments.
Thank you.
Any comments for Time Bond, Marshall?
No, I just had a question that I forgot to ask before. During the inspections that are going to take place during construction, and post-construction, who's performing those exactly? Like, is it a different firm, or are you guys doing that, Jane, or?
So I can speak to the compliance monitoring that we would be responsible for, that we put together as part of this plan. There for the stormwater monitoring, I believe that will be handled by Langen. So for compliance monitoring, yes, we would be the responsible party.
So you're the party that will go out during construction and make sure that, nobody's encroaching?
We do all the training right up front. As part of that, as well as we put together, essentially awareness posters or caution posters. That includes some of the details, for vernal pools, these are the types of species you may encounter during the project. We'll also for box turtle, we'll post signs for eastern box turtle along the perimeter of the site and also the job trailer. So that as, crews move in and out, we can retrain them, but also it provides kind of awareness, continued awareness training as their contractors are walking across the site. We provide all of our contact information, cell phone numbers. They can either call us or text us immediately if they find something. We go through the procedure if they do find something, what to do. And as well as, making sure that, you know, if they do find something, they notify us immediately. We incorporate that as part of our, reporting requirements, just to make sure that, you know, those are documented properly.
Okay.
And that those animals, if they did encounter them, were moved and were unharmed.
Is it something that you do regularly on sites? We've just
Yeah.
never had anybody offer.
Yes.
Yeah. Very thorough.
Yes, we've never had anybody actually come before us and offer to do all this.
So as part of our natural resource group, we do a tremendous amount of compliance monitoring across the state. We work for large industrial developers like this facility. We're doing monitoring right now for a Uline warehouse facility in Plainfield, Connecticut, where we have wetlands nearby, vernal pools nearby, no rare species in that particular case, but we also work for large programmatic developers, as well as Eversource Energy as part of their infrastructure, facilities and right-of-ways. So we do this quite regularly. And for these type of projects, it makes sense. It's provides a certain level of both awareness and also protection of those natural resources, and that, you know, oftentimes contractors sometimes aren't aware exactly where the wetland boundary is. And they just don't know. It's just, you know, it happens, you know, accidents happen. And so we feel that education is a big part of that. And we get very good responses from contractors. A lot of them are personally interested in these matters. They thank us for that training. But yeah, we've been employing this type of technique for when we have development in close proximity to wetland and sensitive receptors for well over 20 years. I also, as a personal matter, I'm a member of Lebanon Inland Wetland Connection. I've been a member for 30 years. So I understand where you folks are coming from and have that sensitivity that so these resources are important for a number of different reasons. So if we can employ some simple measures to ensure additional protection measures to avoid some of those incidental issues during construction, everyone's better for it.
Agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Any other question? No. No? Okay. All right, we'd like to open this up to the public. If any member of the public has comments related to wetlands issues or stormwater management, please step up to the podium and list your name and address for the record. And again, just please try to keep it to 2 minutes and be respectful of everyone. Thank you.
Lynn Mallory, 9 Michelle Lane. I'll leave my 2 minutes, just try and get it.
I'll let you start all over.
He sent a letter to the commission, and some of the questions I had have been answered in the meetings that I've attended and some haven't. There was been in the inland wetland submission on page 6, there was a figure that has the Michelle Lane listed, but doesn't show any houses on it, and yet it shows houses on all the rest of the streets in there. I'm just not sure why they're not aware of the fact that that cul-de-sac is full of houses and it is an impact on you. The other thing on page 6 in that, where they refer to the wildlife that's present, whoever was doing their study was very neglectful. There was no mention of the red foxes, the coyotes, the bobcats, and the black bears that are right in that area. And when it comes to the bird list, they've only got about half of them. And the commission members have the list for me of what's available there. And then when it comes to the box turtle, I'm not sure, I'm not an expert on box turtle, but this one was taken May 27th. Just down the street from me. So there are turtles in the area, so you need to be aware of that and be protective of those. Also, I'm going to skip to this CE 103 figure that they showed, and I'm not sure whether it's available, but anyway, between my house and my neighbor, they've got a triangle with a number 1 with no explanation of what they're talking about and what they intend to do with our 2 houses there. So if somebody could get an answer for that, I'd really appreciate it. My last one is referring to the waiver that they're requesting. And if you go to page 58 of the Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual, and this may not be the right place, but this is the one I found, it says peak runoff attenuation may be waived for the 2-year and 24-hour storm event for sites having less than 1 acre of DCIA. And unfortunately, didn't get to find out what DCIA is, but I'm sure some of these engineers can tell me, but I can't imagine out of the 183 acres that they can come up with less than 1 acre for this DCA, which gives this commission then authority to make a waiver. But if it's not, then I don't believe a waiver is possible. So that's something that this commission should try to find out, or try to find out from these gentlemen, because otherwise it may need to go back to the Connecticut DEP for their permission to have a waiver on it, if that's possible. So I think that's all I have at this point, and I appreciate your time, and I hope that you are able to make a fair decision on this event.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Nick Duwatsky, I live in Brittany Lane, I'll be 1,000 feet from that monstrosity that's gonna go up. He addressed actually what I was gonna talk about, so that was good. Yeah, like the wildlife, there's a ton of deer in that area too. You're gonna destroy their habitat. Besides all the animals he mentioned, there's rabbits all over the place. That habitat's gonna go. Now, they're gonna, construction, they talked about that. They're gonna put some walls up and stuff. What about when they start blasting, besides the damage to the houses they're gonna do? And that's for real.
But is that a wetland issue?
Huh?
Is that a
Let me
wetland
finish.
issue?
Let me
Okay.
finish. Besides that, the damage to the houses, they're gonna be throwing stuff up in the air, chemicals. Okay, heavy metals, oils, toxic substances. And I did some research on other Amazon buildings to get this information, okay? They get into the wetlands, into the water. And affect it. Same thing there, you don't want to talk about traffic, but I'm not talking about traffic. There's a study I looked at, again, Amazon facility. They say there's about 6,000 cars per day going into the facility and about 2,300 of diesel. These vehicles just starting the operation of the facility are throwing all sorts of pollution in the air. And I know they're talking about electric, that's years away. They're not there yet. This is also gonna get into the area. It's gonna get into the trees, it's gonna get into the wetlands. It's, during the construction phase, again, they're gonna be blasted. They're gonna be moving stuff all over the place. Now, talking about trees, there was a study, the Green Heart Louisville Project had a heel study, which was on Today's Show also. They showed that people in neighborhoods with twice as many trees and shrubs had lower levels of heart disease, diabetes, and cancer compared to those with tree-bare neighborhoods, and they're cutting down trees. That's gonna affect the people. And now they're talking about they're gonna, the runoff, they're gonna control that. Okay, what happens if it doesn't control that? What's gonna happen then? But let's, they talk about these every 25, 10 years, whatever storms. That's out the window today. We all know, you look on the weather reports, these storms are happening every other year. We just had one in August. That flooded parts of Naugatuck. Okay, and then so you got destroyed. Those are gonna happen with climate change, that's gonna happen more often. Those berries are gonna get overwhelmed. And all that crap's gonna go into the wetlands. When they plow snow, all that stuff's gonna go over it, into the ground. All that stuff's gonna get in there. How do you control that? This is stuff that we have to look at. Like I said, he addressed some of the stuff I was gonna talk about. And a lot of the stuff that I looked at came from studies on other Amazon facilities going up. If you do the research on this, you're gonna find all these issues that happen with it. Okay? Oh, police, okay, yeah, with the operation, places, like I said, trucks, cars, all those things, all that pollution goes into the air, it's gonna settle somewhere. And guess where it's gonna settle? And like I said, when the water overflows, that, right now, the ground soaks it in. It's gonna flood the people's houses. I mean, he lives, I think he lives like 36 feet away from it. Guess what? He's gonna have a pool in his house. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Barbara Whitaker. I live at 111 Pondview Drive. And I noticed on the application that 0 Pondview Drive was included, but there was no discussion on that. So I'm just wondering what is intended for that area, if anything.
Any address that we haven't, any property in town that's not developed on the street, we have a 0 address. So it's probably not the 0 on view that you were just talking about.
Okay, there's a gas line that runs through there and it's wetlands.
That's the vernal pool, I believe they're talking about, that's offsite.
Which number?
The 0 pond view, I believe.
Yeah, which?
It's
number?
offsite, the vernal pool tree.
2, okay. And, so nothing's gonna be done there and nothing will be done with the gas line?
Property.
It's
It's
not
not their property.
Okay, very good. Because we see people in there all the time. I don't know if it's for Amazon, I don't know if people are bird watching, but.
The only reason the sign was put there was so people kind of had an idea where the project was, but it wasn't right at that point.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
One more question?
Yep. I'm gonna give you 2 more minutes, but yeah.
I won't take 2 minutes. Lynn Mallory, 9 Michelle Lane. Again, on the vernal pool too, and this has to do not necessarily with them, because like I said, it's off their property, but 2 years ago, Ebridge, they have an east-west easement on that vernal pool going right along the road. But they actually went north-south into that. Did they do something that's intended for this project? Because when I went online, I couldn't find an application in your area department of giving them permission to go north and south. So I'm not sure what work was done, and I think that's partly what Barbara's asking is, you know, that vernal pool, which listed at 0 pond view, is the same 0 pond view that if you look up the parcel that Waterbury owns, it's also called 0 pond view, so it's a little confusing.
So 0 Pond View is part of, not, I thought they're part of Waterbury.
It's both,
It's both, oh, it's bisected, okay.
but it's 2 different owners.
There was nothing was done on.
No, nothing was done. We did have a letter in on that, and I believe they were doing maintenance. What were they doing on the gas lines?
Yeah, probably cutting them.
They were doing some kind of maintenance on it.
Yeah.
But it was going north, it's not going through their easement, it's going the opposite direction. All the way into the end of the vernal pond. Almost touching to the other 0 pond view that is owned by Waterbury.
We don't know.
I think
That they didn't,
find out.
yeah, didn't come to here, so.
Well, usually we get,
We'll get a notification.
you know, on the commission, just so everybody knows, there's regular
It's
things
through the
like that.
wetland, so it's gotta be.
Yeah, and we do get notices when they're doing work, because they have the easements, usually it's for a gas line, and, but if neighbors ever see anything that you think is out of the ordinary, because we can't, obviously, we don't live there, please, in the future, call the land use office and they can look into it to make sure we, you know what's going on, because we can't be there all the time, so please keep your eye open if you see anything.
Right, we're unaware of it. We weren't
If I
notified
can
of
just speak
anything,
on that real
so.
quick, that was just.
Excuse me,
You can come up.
you can come up to the podium and speak on the topic. Name and address, please.
All right, Mark Roslow, 21 Pondview Drive. That, I live directly across from where he's referring to, that was cathartic ground that was put in for the pipeline. That's all it was.
Okay.
Cathartic ground, we put a pipeline.
Thank you.
They have to go far south, so far north.
Well, pipeline.
Yeah, that's a visual project, right?
Any other member of the public would like to speak? No? Oh.
Good evening, my name is Steve Schrag, I live at 36 Buckland Street. I'm here as an active member of the Gilmartin Community Club in Waterbury. I've lived in Waterbury for 42 years, I've lived in the Gilmartin area for 35 years, and we have struggled over this piece of land for a long time. Back in the 90s, there was shop code, with a proposal that was made by both Mayor Rado and Mayor Santa Petro to develop this into a super mall. We successfully stopped that from being developed then. There was a committee, a secret committee that was created by the two mayors that helped select the site. I'd like to know who selected the site for this particular project. The 2010s, there was a proposal to build a casino there. We successfully fought that. There were investors that were not disclosed to us about who was in.
I'm just gonna hold you up right there. Is there a wetland issue?
Well, I'll get to that, yes.
Okay, can you please get to that?
Okay,
'Cause that's what's under our purview.
all right, well.
Thank you.
With regards to the tag and bond criticisms of or questions regarding the proposal. There are a number of them that basically says that doesn't cover the sufficient cover. That the call out missing for stormwater basin center of plan. Grading and drainage plan number 3, grading and drainage plan number 5, grading and drainage plan number 7. There's a number of questions that tag and bond had, and I don't know what the answers are. I will tell you that my own experience with consultants and experts is quite sketchy. The fact is, I don't know if you've all vetted these consultants or not, but I've done work in Waterbury and environmental issues, and I've done work in my professional life as an occupational safety and health professional with worker safety. And basically, he who pays the piper calls the tune. I'd be very skeptical about consultants that are hired by the developers. Because in Waterbury, a developer was doing asbestos work at Bristol Babcock. I drove by, they were exposing the workers in the community to high levels of asbestos. And I called the State Department of Public Health, and there was nobody monitoring. So when you've been told that someone's gonna monitor for you, I'd be very skeptical about that. Want to end on a couple of things.
That was 2 minutes, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, thank you anyway.
Thank you.
You want us to answer who hired?
Hmm?
Do we answer who hired?
Yes.
Just, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Christopher Casey, 35 Corman's Road, Waterbury. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak. I'll try to be brief. I'd like to virtually welcome back Christina. I've known her for years now, because she's been coming to the Lower Naugatuck Valley on behalf of Blue Water. I noticed a lot of people mention the heavy earthwork to be done. And according to Mr. Garofano, there will be extensive blasting throughout the area, as he told us this earlier this year. So I don't know how much habitat is going to be left for all the animals, including one animal that was not mentioned. It's only in the fine print that you'll find it, if you'll allow me. Tri-colored bats. Tri-colored bats are in the area, and they're proposed endangered species. So that means it's just a matter of time where they may gain recognition. But they're just listed in a footnote, Bob. Everyone's talking about the turtles, talking about the dusky wings, and all the other animals that live in the area. Nobody's mentioned the bats. I'm sure all the experts here are familiar with the bats. I'm sure they know their status of proposed endangered species. I'm very disappointed that none of them have chosen to disclose that. The commission has a need to know, they have a right to know, and so does the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public that would like to speak on wetlands? No? I'll ask one more time. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak regarding a wetlands issue for this project? Do we have anybody online?
I have Melissa Leonard. Melissa, you can go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for having this hearing and taking our comments and questions. I'll fire through mine as quickly as possible. I'm just wondering what the difference is between Blue Water and BMG Waterbury. It makes me very uneasy when a company uses a different name to work on a project, and that BMG Waterbury is the one that, according to this agenda, is the name on the application. I'm not an expert on that, on wetlands. I'm just concerns me that they want to be granted a waiver for one of those stipulations. I figure, yeah, those stipulations are new, the state regs are new, and that 2-year one is in there for a reason. So I'm not sure that a waiver should be granted for that. If it's not possible to attain that, then perhaps this is the incorrect location for this project. As far as the conservation easement, I noticed that on one of the slides it said 13.6 acres, but whoever was speaking before said it's 33. I'm guessing maybe 13.6 is in Naugatuck and the whole thing is 33, but I'm not sure. And he also said that they had to create the easement before they can occupy the building. I would ask that they create the easement before they even start construction, because we all know it's easier to ask forgiveness than it is permission. And, once they get in there and they've done all this work, I can't imagine that Naugatuck or Waterbury is going to say, oh, no, you didn't do the easement, tear down the building, and waste all that money. So I would say if you guys have any control over that, please ask them for the easement, that conservation easement, before construction even starts. There may be 0 direct wetland impacts, but the indirect impacts weren't even discussed. That's a little concerning to me. Things such as light pollution, which affects bats especially, birds and other wildlife. Can you still hear me? Okay.
Please wrap it up.
Okay, vibration and from the trucks and the air pollution from all those vehicles, as well as all impacts is an indirect impact to the wetlands inhabitants. I would say the most prudent and feasible alternative is to choose a different site. We go through this every time we have a wetlands application, it seems, when people just want to do things in places that are not applicable. We've got a forest at the top of that hill that we should preserve. There are plenty of other sites, and I know that's not a wetlands issue. I can't believe that a silt fence is going to keep snakes and salamanders out, because we've all seen those silt fences and the things will go right underneath them. How is a wildlife sweep done? A whole group of people walks through the field almost like, they're searching for a missing person. And I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Allison Sancherico. You can go ahead. You must unmute Allison Sancherico if you'd like to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, cool. I don't have anything technical or specific. I would just say that as far as inland wetlands is concerned, companies like to dot all their I's and cross their T's in the beginning, and then things go wrong and it's too late. So we can pretty much guarantee that all of the promises that they make will be broken, or at least most of them. And I guess that's basically it. It's just not the right site. If they need a waiver for something, that's definitely not a good sign. It's not the right place for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No.
No? Okay, thank you. All right, so I do have a couple of follow-up questions. I'm sure Marcia does as well, from things that we're hearing. One being the blasting that I don't think was mentioned in other things that we had.
Not to talk, I don't know.
Yes, so if the applicant can address perhaps the blasting, where the blasting would be taking place, how does it impact the wetlands? In Naugatuck, and I'm sure maybe Waterbury would be, maybe they've asked us, right?
The short answer is there is a thorough blasting and earthwork plan, and Josh Garofano, who's again, Senior Vice President of Construction, is very familiar with that. It's going to describe what the process and the protocol.
Thank you.
Dr. Garofano for the record. Blasting, yes, ton of blasting on this site predominantly because the site has a ton of bedrock. Only way to get rid of that bedrock is to blast it. The site's a cut to fill, so.
Can someone please shut that door?
Sorry.
It's all right. Can you shut that door, please? Thank you.
So as Ms. said, there is a blasting procedure. The fire marshal for both jurisdictions will be involved with reviewing our blasting permit, blasting requirements, et cetera. And then they'll obviously be out on site during the blasting. So very detailed. There's a blasting manual. There's all things that will be submitted to the fire department. We haven't created any of that yet. We're not that far until we get further into the planning board approval stage. When we start to get a CM on board and a contractor, we'll start to form those and then submit them as we start to apply for permit, basically.
Okay, so you don't even know where you're gonna blast in relation to the wetlands?
We have a pretty good idea, Tim. We don't have a cut to fill map, do we really, with us? We could provide the board with a cut fill map that'll basically show you where we're blasting and what areas we'd be blasting in. Very easy.
Please, yes, I think we would like that.
You can do that right. Oh,
Thank you. And we have a question?
Well, just to follow up on some of the residents' questions. Which I think.
Yeah, I could address a couple of them are me, and then a couple of them are the consultants, so I think the ones that for me where somebody asked about the easement. We're happy to record the easement, whenever the boards would like their easement recorded, it's doing the paperwork, getting it accepted by the state, filing with the land records. But that was one, and there was maybe one more today.
And with regards to that easement, say we did, ask you as a condition to, record it before construction, would there be areas, I can't remember from the map, where the easement is that you would have to then go into during construction?
Yeah, so I'd have to basically I'd have to create an easement, and then there have to be a temporary construction easement over it with where I'm granting the easement to, and then that would allow me to work in that area for a duration of period, and that would expire, and you'd be left with an easement for the conservation.
Would you be able to tell us, how much of that easement area you're gonna be in and for how long type of situation?
Yeah, the slides in the deck, I basically showed wherever we have an impact, there was the easement, I don't know if we can put it back up. There's a blue line denoting the easement area. And if you see any activities which we described to you that were in the upland review that are inside of the blue dashed line, I'd be working in those areas. Basically, the areas we described to you tonight. So we have the sizes, we have the locations. The only thing I might not have on there that you asked for is the duration of time might be in them. So
Okay, so that's
we
the,
probably wouldn't know we need a full construction schedule and be a little deeper into this.
so that's the conservation easement that you were doing.
If you see the blue hash line, can you just run
Oh,
it
I
there?
see.
It goes all the way up and down, yeah. And I think that was the second question, was somebody said there was a discrepancy between the two easement sizes. It's a combination of 19 feet in one jurisdiction and 13 plus in the other, usually a total of 33. We broke it down by the jurisdiction so that they knew what was in theirs and what was in Waterbury's.
And you'd have to go into that easement area periodically for maintenance though? I'm guessing.
The only thing inside the easement is the basin inside it. So any stormwater management feature that's part of the O and M that we submitted, we need maintenance, I believe, but detail better.
So as part of the conservation easement document, there will be allowances for some of maintenance and access for some of these features. There will be some type of access points to do maintenance of those basins, clean them out periodically for inspections as well. We felt it was worthwhile encompassing them essentially strike a bright line along the eastern edge of the development. Even though we have a couple of stormwater features, we're encompassing them all within that, and within the actual legal document, diesel document, they allow for maintenance of those features. Right now, so through our consultation with Connecticut Deep, and the plan is for the state to be the easement holder for that conservation area, to be passive conservation. We worked through the state's AG office on a similar conservation easement for a warehouse facility in Windsor a couple of years ago. So we're familiar with that process and have worked with the AG's office on that matter. So we know the steps that we need to take, and we can advance those and get those ready so that that document can get finalized and we can get it on the land records as soon as possible. And once the project receives all its approvals.
Okay.
So a couple of comments, and if there are others that you'd like me to address, feel free to weigh in. So for the bat issue, tricolor bat is the state listed endangered species, as well as another another rare bat species that comes up is northern long-eared bat. That's also a state listed endangered species. Neither one of those bats came back from the Natural Diversity Database through our consultation as a species of concern for this particular location.
Just to comment on the bat, that, have you consulted with Jenny Dixon? I know she's the, head of Deep Wildlife Division, and she is a bat expert. She used to head up the bat area for Connecticut. So, and just looking at even like the USDA information, that part of the reason of the extinction of that bat is for white nose syndrome, not necessarily because of habitat. Right?
Yeah, we actually do a lot of consultation works that we have to deal with bat species. So we didn't have any individual conversations with Jenny Dixon, but as part of the initial consultation for this project through the Natural Diversity Database, it gets filtered through all the various wildlife biologists, various specialists. So bats were never flagged as a potential issue. So I'm sure Jenny had her eyes on this and, coordinated with Don McKay or whoever coordinated with the point person for our initial consultation. So there, through that consultation, there are no bad issues for this particular project.
Thank you.
And can you speak to the concern that Mr. Mallory had regarding the other wildlife that he noted that were not disclosed on the report? Would you be willing to add those, or I'm not sure what?
So, yeah, I can speak to that. So, as part of a wetland assessment report, we do provide a listing of typical wildlife species based on the habitat type. It's not an exhaustive wildlife habitat assessment. It's not a requirement for this application. So what we do is list typical species that are commonly occur within these type of habitats, and then add to that for what our observations are during our wetland investigation, our wetland assessment, as well as the evaluations by the herpetologist and the botanist. So any of those wildlife species that were observed as part of those surveys were also added to that list. We say we don't, tout or provide an assurance that it's an exhaustive list. So certainly some of the species that the neighbor identified, I'm sure there are a fair amount of transient wildlife species that, migrate through this property and the neighborhoods, surrounding neighborhoods and whatnot. So if the commission so endeavors, they can feel free to add those observations from the property owner. And I don't dispute that they couldn't potentially exist as, migrants through the property. And if I can just jump on that topic a little bit, there was a question about how the sweeps are performed. So, well, this is obviously a sizable project area. We'll have multiple staff members, scientists who will do sweeping, and we will set up transects to essentially make sure that we're sweeping the entire project area. So it's a very methodical process, as you might imagine. I wouldn't equate it to searching for a missing person. That's not what it's not what we're trained to do or specialized to do, but has follows similar fashion. And that people walk, we can see the other side, keep eye contact with the adjacent people who are doing the sweeps. Whether we do north-south or east-west oriented transects, but we'll methodically cover the entire site.
And these are experts that actually know what they're looking for, not just.
Yes, yeah,
Volunteers.
yeah, I mean, we have a very experienced staff, and, you know, for this particular site, you know, we may tap Davidson Environmental to assist us, you know, to provide, you know, the sufficient amount of manpower needed for that type of sweep.
And what a concern that one of the residents had regarding the silt fences, keeping them out, you know, after the sweep is done. As is something.
So in the site plans, there is a typical detail for how silt fence is supposed to be installed. It's supposed to be embedded into the ground at least 6 inches with a flap, and then filled over with further material. So as part of our initial inspection, the first thing we'll do is inspect the perimeter controls, inspect the silt fence, make sure it's properly embedded, it's properly installed, there's no rips or tears anywhere. It's all standing up straight. And then as part of our sweeps, we'll be also inspecting the perimeter controls. And then as part of our periodic monitoring throughout the duration of construction, that's one of our primary concerns, is make sure that isolation barrier is maintained properly. And if any deficiencies, we notify the contractor and make sure that they fix it within the next 24, 48 hours.
And then I think Mr. Mallory also had a question about his house with a triangle between him and another house. I don't know who can speak to that. I don't know what they're talking about.
Again, Tom Cody. We found the place on the map where I believe he was referencing, and the triangle with the one was basically like a footnote showing where the clouded in area was to show where a change had been made to the plan. That's all it was. It was like a footnote keying in where the clouded area was and where the change had been made to the plan as a result of the peer review process that we went through. So that's all it was.
Okay. And does that satisfy your question, Mr. Mallory, with the map? I didn't know what it was, so I wanted to kind of make sure.
I want to make sure it's addressed for you.
I'm not sure what he's talking about as far as what clouded area, but. Because it points to.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, exactly. This is, so he's showing me the sheet and it's got this little triangle with the one, and right above it is the clouded area showing that's where a change had been made. It's simply the engineer's shorthand of showing you, pointing the reviewer to where a change had been made to the plan in response to a comment.
Okay, thank you.
You're the only one I found on all the prints. So.
Okay.
Mr. Mallory also had asked a question about the stormwater quality manual, and I think he had called out page 58 and questioned whether the application complied with a particular sentence on that page. Our quick look into the manual indicates that he was looking at the 2004 version of the manual and not the current version of the manual, which was just issued in 2024. The provision that he referenced, I don't believe, is in the current manual.
I beg to differ, but that's all right.
Okay. Another question was asked, I believe it was Melissa Leonard, asked us what was the difference between Blue Water Property Group and BMG Waterbury LLC. BMG Waterbury is what's referred to as a special purpose entity. It is an affiliate of Blue Water. It's simply an LLC that is created for each individual project that they work on. So that would be an entity that could enter into contracts and take title to property. That's all it is. There's no secret. And there's nothing nefarious. It's simply an affiliate of Blue Water. Question was asked about tie and bond. I'm not sure if I heard it correctly, but just to clarify, tie and bond was retained by the borough and the city of Waterbury to review the application on your behalf. The regulations, your regulations and state statute allows you to charge the applicant the cost of that review. So there's no net cost to the municipality. And that was employed here. Mr. Schrag said that he had been looking at the tie and bond letter, and there were questions raised in that letter. He asked that same question last night at the Waterbury public hearing, and we answered it. What he's referring to is the first letter, when tie and bond said, here are our questions. And after that, the applicant responded to those questions. And then you heard Mr. White and Mr. Regan describe what the end result of that was, which was that we had satisfied all of their comments and questions. And that was contained in the final letter that tie and bond issued to you. I think that covers all the questions. Yeah, I think that covers all the questions that we took down from members of the public. If you have any further questions, we're more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you. I do have a question for, I guess, for Ned. For
All
our
right.
board.
Yeah.
Regarding the waiver request,
Yes.
does this commission have the authority to grant that?
Well, let's say this, the 2024 stormwater manual, this version came out in, I believe it's effective the end of March of this year. There's no reportable decision on that issue that I'm aware of. I believe the commission would have the authority, and I believe DEEP allows the commission to waive provisions of that manual in the event there are appropriate circumstances presented by the applicant. And in this case, the way I heard the explanation, and when I heard from not just the applicant, but from our own independent reviewer, was that that it was an appropriate request based on the site and the soil conditions of the property associated with the request. So there is, I believe, a sufficient basis in the record if the commission chooses to make that decision.
Thank you.
And by the way, that it's a decision by the commission, but it should be based on some scientific evidence in the record, and I believe that scientific evidence is before you.
Thank you.
Right.
Any questions, Marcia?
No, but I'm wondering if I can get a copy of the presentation, if it can be emailed or it has to be printed.
We have
it? Okay, so okay, get that. Thank you. Thank you. Brian, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good, thanks.
All right. So the applicant is going to provide is offered to provide a cut to fill map. So we can see the blasting and then what the impact is to the wetlands area for that. Was that something that was provided to Waterbury last night for them? They didn't request it. All right. Oh. Do you have anything else?
No.
Brian, nothing else?
Yeah, just.
No, I'm good.
Oh, hi, Bob.
Regarding the stormwater waiver, there was the comment that was brought up regarding the 1 acre of DCIA, which is disconnected impervious area, that gives you the permission to reduce it. In this case, we have more than 1 acre that is disconnected, but also the second line down in that section does give the commission the authority to waive not only the 2-year, but the 10-year and 100-year requirements for flows discharging to a fourth order river, which or greater, which the Naugatuck River is. As long as the contributing area is less than 1% or 5% of the total watershed area of the receiving water body. In this case, the site is approximately 0.1% of the total 311 square mile watershed for the Naugatuck River. So for reasons we stated previously, which were very site specific, we felt it was an appropriate waiver, also, further requirements and exclusions in that manual would also give you the authority.
Thank you for that explanation.
And where did you get that information from?
That's from the 2024 stormwater manual. It is
And what page, you know?
It
It's
is
big.
page 58.
It is page 58.
And chapter 1.
58, okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair, would you like me to bring you a copy?
Sure.
Thank you. I believe it's still, first line is more specific.
Thank you. Oh, we need copies of this. Thank you.
We'll take.
Yes.
And I'd like a copy of that, please, if you can, will be scanned in anyway.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Thank you. All right. Is there any other comments or questions? Okay. All right. Okay, with that, I think we would be safe to close out the public hearing on this.
Yeah, close, because
Well,
are you gonna have the,
we want to look at that.
with the other two? Because if we close it, you can't take any more information.
Oh, okay. All right, so we'll leave it.
And what if,
We haven't made a decision on
what if Marcia and, or not Marcia, but the
the other two.
wanted to ask questions?
They did not send anything when they said they were ready.
We'll keep it open until next month's agenda.
We need to get more information.
Yeah, so, okay, all right, we'll pick it over. Do we need a special meeting or can we continue to have this on our regular schedule?
I booked this for both days.
You booked it for
Wednesday
both?
and
We're only coming for one.
Don't know what day works for the applicant.
Yeah.
Our
If you have
normally
to-
scheduled meeting is Wednesdays,
Which is the same as Waterbury's.
but Waterbury already,
We're done.
We're done with Waterbury, okay.
so the regular scheduled meeting should
Okay.
work.
And what would this be for?
Will you keep the public hearing open and we also need to get more information about the cut and fill map?
So the cut and fill map is something you
Yes, that is
feel
something
you
we
need
want.
before the public hearing closes? Can't be something like made as a condition of.
Well, we need to review it and discuss it, and if we close it, then we can't do that.
Ned, is that part of our? That is the cut and fill map part of the wetlands?
It depends on, what the impact is and whether the cuts and fills have impact on the wetlands itself.
I think it was related.
So,
Correct, it's related more to the blasting and the impact from the blasting.
Blasting, just as a general matter, I mean, really isn't a wetland issue.
We don't know where it's blasting.
They're not blasting in the wetlands.
We described all of our activities that would be happening as you saw it tonight. So blasting is not one of them,
Blasting,
but we could certainly show you the map of where we will be blasting. Not a problem.
You don't have cut and fill maps available, you're not that far into.
I'm gonna get the commission. The commission asked for, I'll put some, we'll get some.
Okay.
So.
Excuse me, this is Christina Bernardin with Blue Water. We do have the limit of disturbance for all of our construction activity shown in our current maps, and that encompasses all of our construction, including blasting activities, grading, etc.
Is that on, is there a way that you can show us, Christina? Can you pull that up? Sorry.
the limits of disturbance that Christina's referencing is everything that we've been discussing. It's the line that moves around the site And the line that is showing how we have kept our construction activity outside of the upland review area entirely, except for just those few places that Dean Gustafson showed you. So, as Christina just said, blasting is included in that activity that is remaining outside of not only the wetlands, but outside of your upland review area, except for those areas that Dean showed you.
So are you blasting, like where the retaining wall is going? Or, you know,
I think that the engineer might be able to show you a little bit, because if the retaining walls are going up against the wetlands and they're gonna be 20 feet high, that's all a fill area. So I think he probably can show you, the areas of cut.
Jim, are you driving the slides or is Christina?
Christina.
I am.
Hi, Tom Durgo, again, professional engineer Lang. So, I can say definitively that there will be no blasting in any of the areas where we have encroachment into the upland review area. Our blasting, and as your, borough engineer mentioned, the locations that we have retaining walls, that's where we're elevating grade above existing grade. The place where the opposite of that happens is really in the middle of the site here. On our grading and drainage plans, you will see a retaining wall that runs right to the north of the Pennsylvania Steel property. And that is a rock face that will be cut. So the perimeter walls are all filled to elevate grade. That face will be, we're lowering existing grade, but have a property to the south of us that will remain high. So we have a geotechnical engineer on the team. They've done a number of borings, they've done soundings, and they've identified where those rock surfaces are. So blasting is here. And the exact limits, we would have to do some analysis to draw the lines. But it is not here, it is not here, it is not here, and it is not here. It's really focused on the high point of the site that will be lowered to create this section of the building, this section of the parking lot. And then as we move north, we begin to fill on existing grade. And that's the reason on the grading and drainage plan that you see retaining walls that come around these sides. In addition, those retaining walls also help limit our footprint and our clearing and our limit of disturbance. If we didn't have retaining walls, we would be clearing and creating slopes that head out. So the walls help us keep those limits tighter, have less clearing, less work. But the blasting itself is really a function of the rock face that will exist in the center of the site.
So you're saying in this area here, I just want to make sure Brian,
Yeah.
one of our commissioners, can't see your pointer.
Yeah.
So you're stating that this is the area where the blasting will be.
Yes, there, maybe even a little bit further south at the southern end of that, so down the page right there, there will be a rock face.
Yeah.
That helps us lower the site to allow that drive aisle that passes east and west to be constructed. Yep, and then as you move north, we begin, so if you had completed a site visit and you walked, as you head north, you continue to drop all the way across. But we have a building that has the same finished floor on one end and on the other. So we are creating a flat plate. In order to do that, we're gonna lower this side, we're gonna raise this side. That is the location of the blasting, if that helps provide some comfort. We did not explicitly say what each activity is in all the purple areas. I think the majority of it is actually fill, so we would be raising grade over existing grade in those areas. We may have some excavation that we need to do to put in a manhole or to put in the section of pipe. But the blasting effort associated with the project is really focused on the knoll in the center of the site to allow that drive aisle and that portion of the parking field to be constructed. And I believe it does wrap a little bit around the corner of Pennsylvania Steel to the east. And then it essentially dies off, and then the driveway rises up to Great Hill Road and meets the cul-de-sac. hopefully that helps.
I think the thought about the blasting was probably mostly as related to wetlands is dust.
Dust,
And
right,
I'm thinking.
dust and
that-
debris and how it
that
settles
the
in.
Dust
and what the
control
impact
plan
is.
can easily be made part of a condition
As a
of
condition.
site to improve it.
Okay.
You said you've done the borings already, so you're certain as to where you're blasting?
Yes,
Okay.
so a geotechnical investigation has been completed across the site to understand where we transition from rock to fill, because rock and soil react differently. We've done an investigation of the alignment of the retaining walls to make sure that the soil that the wall will be placed on is capable of handling that, understanding the pressures. And then a kind of a linear investigation along that southern property line was done, where they essentially use radar sounding and drill rigs to identify where the top of rock is. Because when we build that wall on that southern side, if you transition from rock to soil, we need to know where that is. So, you know, it's not a perfect line of rock, it goes up, it goes down. So understanding those treatments and where they'll be completed was kind of an important part for cost and constructability. We needed to understand if we needed an easement from the neighboring property to do work. We needed to understand the constraints that kind of locked us in, and really the location of that wall is a function of the engineering and what can we fit. You can't really build a rock face on your neighbor's property line because you still need to do work above it. So we had to set a distance in from the site that we control the land and we can actually execute the construction.
Thank you. That answer your question?
Brian, are you good with that?
I am.
Very good, thank you. All right, so I think we had our question answered about the blasting. So we could put a dust control plan, we can implement that to protect the wetlands. Looks like we got our question answered regarding the waiver, that we do have the authority to grant that if that was desired by the commission. I don't think there's anything else. Is there anything else that we would need to meet again next month on for that? And maybe we could close out the public hearing and perhaps make a decision.
We can close the public hearing, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We could work on a motion for
Yeah.
next month as well.
Yeah. We're gonna do that. Because there's still a lot, that we've to absorb on this. And so I want to thank the applicants and for their information, and I want to thank the public for your comments, and it's been very helpful. So we do appreciate that and everyone's cooperation. So are we in agreement we can close out the public hearing? Okay, Brian, you good with closing out the public hearing?
Yep.
Okay. Ned, there's no issues with that?
No, you can close, you're allowed to close public hearing, just that as long as I'm sure the applicant is well aware that there should be no further information provided to the commission subsequent to the public hearing being closed. So the public, I think, should be aware of that.
All right, thank you. All right. So I will note that we don't have to vote on that. No, all right. I'll just note that we have closed the public hearing tonight. 9:20. Yep, 9:22. On November 7th, and we will take all the information that we have into consideration and review it, and hopefully be able to make a decision on our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is December 4th at 6:30.
We'll be back.
We'll be back here. So public is always invited, always encouraged, and if you really want to make an impact with the wetlands, we do have some alternate positions available, so please feel free to contact. We're always welcome to have you, and that really is the best way to make an impact. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We're back into our regular meeting minutes. Do we have anything else? Just our schedule? Or
Oh, yeah, well, I
2025
can't add anything to the agenda, that's just giving you the schedule.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the same as every year.
Yeah, same as every year. Okay, very good.
You can't make
You can't make any of them? Oh, you can make them all.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Right. Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Adjourn at 8:24 PM. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for.
Welcome. Have a good night.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.